Once again, hi guys, it's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video, and finally welcome to part 2, a lot later than planned, part 2 of how Italian football can improve its youth development. I'm slightly later than planned, only just, several hours later than planned, because rather foolishly I agreed to play Monopoly. I got involved in a game of Monopoly. I guess I did win, but I was thinking I'd probably happily lose every game of Monopoly if it meant that Italian football teams, and of course Celtic, would win. I suppose that's a number I have where I suppose when I play games like Monopoly I get a bit carried away with my competitivity, but if I had a choice I'd rather lose every game I play other than in Monopoly or any other games, video games or whatever, which I will accept I'm not very good at anyway, if it meant Italian teams and Celtic would win if I was given that choice in life. Also, even I say even, like I was thinking, if it meant my cat was would be safe and well, I would sacrifice losing every game. I'd probably even sacrifice Italian teams and of course Celtic winning if that's what it took. Although that would be hard to do. But when it comes to Italian football and Celtic, it would be hard to choose what's more important. I suppose Italy winning the World Cup and Italian teams winning in Europe would be slightly more important. Italian teams winning the World Cup, winning the most World Cups, more than any other country, nation or country, whatever you want to call it. And second, closely followed by Serie A teams winning the most competitions between all the European teams, and being known as a top league as well. So Italy to be known as a top country for club and football-wise, club and country-wise, in better English. And then third most importantly would be Celtic winning. So it'd be very close between those three things. At the time, I see them all as important. Similar when I play Monopoly, but I kind of know it's not that important. I'd certainly prefer my favourite football teams to win, then I wouldn't mind losing Monopoly or whatever. But again, nice life story, I know. But these are pointers number 11 to 20 as per usual. I was thinking of going to watch the game with my dad tomorrow, but I think technically today, but I think I might give it a miss to catch up on my paperworks and videos I want to make, including about things to change in Italian football more generally. Like today, technically yesterday, as I'm behind schedule, I wanted to focus on about 4 hours behind schedule. But there you go, at least 2, if not 3 or 4 hours behind schedule. I guess ideally I would have started at 8 o'clock, and it's midnight now, or past midnight even. At one point I was hoping to finish Monopoly at 10 o'clock and then start at that time or whatever. But anyway, could have, should have, what I was to say. But yeah, I might give the Celtic game a miss tomorrow, but obviously I'm hoping Celtic do win, and hopefully win at least a league, if not a double, to cheer me up. But anyway, on that note, yeah, it seems to be falling apart at the same time. Italy struggling, and Celtic as well. So I'll talk about that maybe tomorrow or ASAP. But here goes. So number 11, I think there needs to be structural change to give younger people opportunities. One, to encourage them to get back into football, play football as much as possible, and secondly I'm doing the list with a list, but secondly to change the structure of not giving young people opportunities. I know a lot of people know that, but I do have fears, which I hope to come to, about whether things will change, whether Serie A and the people who run the FIGC and whatnot can work together to make changes. And as I call them, the dinosaurs stuck in their ways. I'm a bit of a dinosaur myself, I know, but I think they need to not be stubborn and give more younger people opportunities. But I'd love for the FIGC to play more younger players, especially as I talked about in the past, with like friendlies, the Olympics and even the Euros, and maybe even the World Cup itself, but not so much. But like the Euros, I don't take them that seriously, like the Olympics and the Euros, and certainly friendlies. I think the result is not as important as a long-term result of winning long-term. So I'm very competitive, but it's game management, I think, is seeing which games are more important and the longer-term strategy for the next 5 to 10 years or whatnot. And Italy, as I mentioned in part 1, has got 4 years to prepare for the next World Cup at least, unless we're given a place that someone else gets kicked out of, which only happened, I think, once in history, and that was at the Euros. But yeah, I do fear that they have a reluctance to change, and I think they need to make those changes before I got engrossed in a game of Monopoly. I guess that's one thing I don't like, to be distracted. Like sometimes I have a dilemma because like, I kind of want to play Monopoly and other things, but then I don't want to be distracted from thinking like, on that tunnel focus of like almost autistic like focus. But because I think that can have its advantages. But more, I'll talk about autism another time, maybe. People like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and people like that potentially being autistic or whatever. But yeah, I don't want to go too much off topic. But yeah, I do worry if there is going to be a change if like the dinosaurs can be got rid of and they appoint people who know about football. And sometimes maybe you need people with suits, people in suits who know about how to fundraise. But I think there also needs to be football people who know how to develop football. And learning from like Spain and things like that. Like, why not learn and replicate what they've done to create a good football team? I often think like Italy, just like Spain, is a Mediterranean nation with a very similar climate and a very similar culture. So why not sort of imitate what they've done, copy what they've done, and that kind of thing? Because it clearly works. So why not try that for example, which hasn't been working? But I do fear change. I'm hoping I didn't forget anything, but I'm going to move on to point number 12. I would say sticking with younger players and giving them opportunities. So I mentioned in part one, and I've been thinking about like getting the balance right between having that competitive winning spirit and winning mentality and wanting to develop players and give them time. And sometimes I think they need to learn that sometimes you need to lose to learn, make mistakes, and ultimately fail and try different skills and tricks. Like the goalkeepers, I want them to be. I know there's only one on the pitch at the same time, but in the plural, like all the different goalkeepers, I think need to learn to be a safe pair of hands and not take on too many risks, or whatever. The defenders, I think, similarly. Um, but I think at least one of the centre mids and the two wingers and the strikers, I play a 4-4-2, even a hot way there, but as usual. But as I mentioned in part one, I don't know how much of my ideas to share and how much to keep close to my chest, so to speak. But the I think at least one of the midfielders, at least one of the centre mids, one could play a bit deeper in front of the defence, but at least one of them could try different skills and tricks and see which ones work. And if one doesn't work, try another. So as soon as a defender or the opposition, generally midfield and the stroke or defence, or even the goalkeeper thinks they've got you sussed, you can try a different trick and keep working out to get right. To keep learning from mistakes, trial and error. So at least I'd say three of the midfielders, if we play 4-4-2, and two strikers can still try a lot of different skills. And I'd love for them to, as I talked about in part one again, I'd love for them to copy like YouTube videos of Messi, Maradona, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, both Ronaldos, the two Ronnies as I call them, the Portuguese and the Brazilian one, Zidane, Zizou, and players like that, and see what they can learn from them and like try those tricks, like maybe even try them for like an hour a day, every day, to see if they can learn them. And again, learn from trial and error. I'd love to fundraise for Italy to have as many football pitches as possible. Um, Moving on to number 13, I do, as I say, I do fear, and I made it want to say that point of 13 because I think of negatives. I do fear, for one thing, it's embarrassing to fail to get to 3 World Cups in a row, and even the Italian club teams are not doing well as well, which haven't been for a while. I suppose I say even the Italian club teams, but both for club and country. I suppose in times in history, sometimes the national team's done well, but the club teams haven't done so well. And sometimes the club teams have done well, but the national team hasn't. But at the moment, it's like sort of both at the same time. Like I think it's all going wrong at once in terms of like Italy not doing well and Celtic and that kind of thing. But yeah, I fear that they won't make those changes. And again, I mentioned in part one, I don't encourage any law breaking and any violence or anything like that. But I think if they could have a peaceful and legal campaign, a lawful campaign, maybe writing letters to the FIGC and to town politicians, town councillors, and whatnot, to call for change, which I think is really important. And that change in this case, meaning youth development, again, copying, take like Spain, France, and other nations. Another thing is like trying to challenge racism through football. I mentioned I'm a big fan of Italian football, even in spite of the fact that they are quite imperialistic and maybe even arrogant. not because of it, but in spite of it. But just because I think I look Italian and I've supported them since I was younger, I love to encourage my fellow Anglo-Indians and other Eurasians to do so. But I think the best players should play. It should be based on merit, and maybe migrants could be included. Those with a skill or talent for football. I'd love for those to be able to migrate to Italy. I think they should pick the best players. I don't think they should pick them because they're migrants or because they're from Africa or because they're black or whatever. But I don't think they should exclude the best players. So Italy could still benefit from players like Pele, Kante, Zizou, who came from Algeria, and others, just like Brazil and France have done. Obviously, Brazil mixed France history. I do fear those changes in the culture of the FIGC and that kind of thing stuck in their ways, which at the moment are just not working. And even when we had great players like Nesta, Maldini, and people like that, Cannavaro and whatnot, we didn't win that many trophies at international level. Obviously, we won in 2006, but I think the most successful teams are attack-minded. I love to see Italian football become attack-minded, but I do wonder, and I do worry, like if they always get set in that way of defending, and even if a new system is built in, will people stick with and trust that system? But if you look at, again, copying and imitating Spain, France, Brazil, Argentina, Germany, and teams like that, like Germany, have strength in each position. Like an Indian guy who used to play football in the park, a guy of Indian origin, said, I love the way Germany won the 90 World Cup, which happened to be in Italy, because they had good players in each position. So I'd love for Italy to do that, but I do fear that they won't make those changes. Number 14, I hope they'll find solutions. As I say, to me, it seems like a no-brainer, so to speak, to be able to just copy and paste what other nations have done and try different things to see which one works. Number 15, I think there should be a focus on youth development. Number 16, it would be interesting to see what they could do. Again, I'd love to see more attacking football and changes with the youth development and that kind of thing. Number 17, in the future, I'd love to go to Italy. Again, sometimes I wonder if I should keep a lot of my ideas secret. I know I mentioned about I would like to go to Italy, but to share my strategies for football, like coaching, if you like, even though I don't have my coaching badges, which you would need normally. But even just to share strategies, whether you call that coaching, managing, sharing ideas, creating a think tank, or whatever you want to call it. And I think of like different games, like which pass you make, you get a point. If every player touches the ball, you get a certain amount of points, and then obviously you score a goal at the end of it. So that shows you pass and move as a team, but you also want to have that end product as well, just different games. I love to create like little tournaments. Again, I don't know how much I should give away, but I'm probably going to say it now. But whoever scores the most amount of goals, like you get a point per goal, and then you play so many different teams and you add it together. So the points you get are added in the end. So how many goals you score. So that would encourage more attacking football. So again, if you play 5 or 10 or whatever teams, you all play each other in what they call a round robin. You get the amount of points that you score rather than just 3 points for a win or whatever, or rather than 3 points for a win, or 1 point for a draw, whatever. You get the amount you score. And I think the fact that you get 3 points for a win and 1 for a draw, and at the end of a game, you can't really draw a game in tournament football and international football. In the knockout stage, either it goes to penalties or whatever. So that shows that defensive teams, or you have to be able to score at some point, whether that's on penalties or in the game. Also, I think Italians should practice penalties, especially at youth level, and practice for all different eventualities and be organised, pre-planned, just like the Germans and that kind of thing. I'd love to see Italians have great skills, develop good young players, especially Juventus, but Italian teams generally, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Roma, and all the other Italian teams like schools, parks, and whatnot, to encourage people to try different skills, to copy Ronaldinho, Messi, Zidane, and that kind of thing. It'd be hard to imagine, but I'd love to see Italy creating those type of players, and also my fellow Anglo-Indians and other Eurasians and people under adverse conditions, and even people with mental health problems. It would give us a purpose in life, I guess, which could help. And clubs could, like Milan, Inter, and Juventus, could work with them. Juventus, especially working with younger people. We would play, especially at youth level, and try different skills, and hopefully that would help to have fun and bring our own camaraderie and that kind of thing. But also, as well as developing our own game, helping Italy to develop its game. Number 18, again, I'd love to encourage more positive, proactive attacking football. Number 19, I'd love for clubs, like especially Juventus, to work, as it means youth, to work with parks and schools and youth clubs and that kind of thing, and maybe even help fund their own and have as many academies as possible. With Juventus, I'd love to fundraise, especially for them to have as many academies as possible. All Italian teams really, but them in particular, and for them to work with. Again, all Italian teams, but especially Juventus, given their name, I think it'd be quite fitting to work with parks and schools, parents, teachers, and whatnot, to work with younger people. And number 20, also like for good behaviour, you get to play football, which could discourage crime and criminality in Italy, and hopefully develop youth football, most importantly, I guess. And I'm out.